The Great Steppe, millenniums of events, hundreds of nomadic tribes and people. They lived, worked, made discoveries, conquered large tracts of lands, and left us some mysteries. To learn more about it, watch the project called Enigma of the Great Steppe. Coming up today, researchers or Secret Service agents find way to Kashgar, greatest work of Chokan Valikhanov. It was an early autumn morning when 23-year-old Chokan Valikhanov, who would later be named the first Kazakh scientist enlightener, knelt down to the ground and buried a wooden chest in a shallow pit. The chest held a journey book carefully wrapped into calico. Following words were written there with tiny, uneven handwriting. "I'm in a hurry. The diary is now to be buried in the ground. If we arrive safe and sound, if the diary will not be ruined by dampness, we will again show it to people. I entrust you to Allah. Goodbye." It was 1858 and there were 135 versts, obsolete Russian unit of length equal to 1.0668 kilometers, to the rebellious Kashgaria. Chokan Valikhanov's fears could be understood. Indeed, just a year before his journey, the news of the death of Adolf Schlagen-Tveit, geographer, anthropologist, researcher of Central Asia of German origin, came from the steppes of southern Jungaria. His stubborn striving to penetrate into the very heart of Kashgaria played a cruel trick on him. Local authorities, who treated every European as a spy, did not hesitate to sentence him to death. However, this time they probably did not make a mistake, as a lot of modern scholars have an opinion Schlagen-Tveit was an agent of the British Special Services, with the support of which he came from India. So, what kind of secrets did the rulers of Jungaria try to conceal from foreigners? And why did the two world powers so persistently aspire to know them?
In
1759, Qing China took control of the eastern Turkestan, Uyghur lands. The people of eastern Turkestan never forgot about the independence and fought for it. In 1826 to 1828, there was a well-known revolt led by Jahangir Khoja in Kashgaria. It was cruelly suppressed and its leader was executed through dismemberment in Beijing. Years passed, and in 1956 to 1957, a new revolt broke out. It was led by Khan Jahangir Khoja's nephew, Valikhan Tore. Kashgar fell into the hands of Valikhan Tore and his supporters. Taking into account such a troubled situation in the region, interest in it was more than logical. The only one who could get into the region was a well-trained spy. Gustav Gosford was chosen as a researcher of the commercial and military political significance of this part of Central Asia. Those years, he held the post of the West Siberian Governor General, military minister, and the director of the Asian Department of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia, simultaneously addressed him with a request for assistance. Gosford's answer was the following: "For this case, I choose Lieutenant Valikhanov, authorized for me for special assignments. This officer is the son of the most worthy Kyrgyz Sultan, Chingiz Valikhanov. He has very good talents and can be relied on for his quickness. Moreover, he was well acquainted with the history and present state of the Central Asian possessions, and being a Muslim himself, more likely to gain trust of co-religionists than a Russian official." But why did such a young and at first sight inexperienced candidate seem worthy to the governor? The answer lies in Valikhanov's cadet youth and the events that happened to him a little later. Chokan learned very quickly, outstripping his Russian comrades. Many were interested in him. He read historical and geographical literature, rare publications of which were difficult to obtain in Omsk. At the time Chokan was 14 to 15 years old, the cadet authorities began seeing in him a future researcher and perhaps a scientist. Chokan himself dreamed of traveling to Central Asia.
После окончания кадетского корпуса его оставили при генерал-губернаторе.
After graduating from the cadet corps, he was left working under the Omsk governor general, but interestingly, he was also a special mission officer. Thus, we think that he began to be gradually attracted to specific intelligence work.
Такой специфической работе. Он совершил вместе с Гасфортом.
He, together with Gasford, had an inspection tour of eastern Kazakhstan, Semirechye.
После этой экспедиции он совершил вместе.
After this exhibition, he joined Khomentovsky in a military scientific expedition.
Он тоже был при этой экспедиции. В следующем году.
Already next year in 1856, Valikhanov went to Khulja.
В составе российского.
There, as part of the Russian embassy, he negotiated with the local Qing administration.
Администрации. В 1957 году.
In 1857, he was given a purely diplomatic mission to visit with gifts Buranbay, the ruler of the Kyrgyz clan Bogu. Obviously, it was not just a visit, he had the mission to attract the Kyrgyz to the Russian side. All historians, Orientalists, are unanimously convinced that the authorities prepared Chokan Valikhanov to be a Secret Service agent. It is not surprising, as in earlier days, absolutely all travelers and researchers, to a greater or less extent, were spies, starting with Lawrence of Arabia. Without a doubt, the trips preceding the Kashgar expedition prepared the young Chokan for a difficult mission. He was completely aware of the degree of responsibility entrusted to him and possible risks, and was extremely responsible in preparing for the task of Tsarist Russia. He studied the history of this region, the history of uprisings, including the riot of Valikhan Tore. He got acquainted with people who knew this region. For example, he consulted with Borinsky, a native of the city of Saryakol, Sadim Sa, who was an expert of eastern Turkestan. Chokan also consulted the commandant of the Chokan fortress, Pishpek Alisher Datha. He was also a native of East Turkestan and in his time fled from there when the Chins conquered the region. They fled and settled in Kokand. There was another good consultant, Yakub Yankulov, who was a merchant trading between Russia and Khulja. He visited Kashgaria many times, knew the country well, and they jointly prepared this expedition. June 28, 1858, Chokan Valikhanov joined the merchant caravan from Semipalatinsk, in which he set off on an expedition. On October 1st, merchant Alimbai Abdilabayev, a relative of the caravan Banshi, chief of the merchant caravan, saw the ancient legendary Kashgar. The legend was made up by Yakub Yankulov, who remembered that in his time about 20 years ago, when he was in the city with the expedition, a Kashgar trader with a young son left Kashgar. He initially left for Semipalatinsk and then moved to Saratov. No one knew about his future fate, but Yakub Yankulov knew for sure that he had not returned to Kashgaria, and Chokan Valikhanov was about the age of the son of this merchant. Therefore, it was decided to take that legend. To comply with the legend to the full extent, Chokan Valikhanov changed into a shapan, shaved his head, and, as an Orthodox Muslim, began performing five-time prayer. Outwardly, he was no different from other merchants of the trade caravan. Moreover, the lieutenant got so accustomed to the image that later the relatives of Alimbai Abdilabayev did not suspect the substitution and recognized him as the real Alimbai. It is interesting that upon arrival to Kashgar, going through all border and customs formalities, Chokan did not at all rush to fulfill his duty to the fatherland. On the contrary, first he married. Although at first glance this marriage was more for a cover rather than a pure spiritual impulse. After all, it was so-called temporary marriage common in those regions. Nevertheless, modern researchers do not agree with such interpretation of Valikhanov's actions. I think this woman played a big role in his life. He missed Kashgar until the end of his days, and obviously he missed his temporary wife. He dreamed of returning there as a Russian consul. Here's an interesting fact. When we were in Urumqi, we were told a curious story that a Uyghur Kashgarian came from Kashgar a few years ago and brought a beautiful girl with him. He claimed that she was the great-granddaughter of Chokan Valikhanov. This is difficult to prove, although it is certainly possible to do a DNA test. What if it is true? Maybe the girl is indeed Chokan's great-granddaughter. Valikhanov indeed got lucky with his wife, as the woman was a worthy companion of a secret agent and not only acquainted the researcher with the secrets of her native land, but also shed light on the fate of Schlagin Tveit.
Версий было много о гибели Шлагенфельда.
There were a lot of versions of Schlagin Tveit's death, but Chokan's one was the most accurate. He wrote that Schlagin Tveit refused to give Valikhan Tore letters to the Chokan Khan. He ruled East Turkestan only for several years, and it was a difficult time, memorable with various severities. He naturally feared of various ties, espionage of the Chokan people, and ordered to behead Schlagin Tveit. So what was Kashgar like in the times of Chokan Valikhanov? Reading the travel notes of the officer, the imagination draws narrow, crooked streets where, from early morning until late at night, craftsmen worked and merchants traded. Mausoleum of Sultan Satuk Bogra Khan and crowds of pilgrims flocking to it. Quiet village Artush fascinated Valikhanov with breathtaking views of the amazing tomb and mosque built on the grave of Sutuk Bogra Khan Ghazi. It is noteworthy that for fears of searches, Chokan Valikhanov practically did not make notes. So when preserving the necessary data, he had to entirely rely on his memory. He had two purposes. As a personnel spy, he wanted to find out what was going on, and as a genuine scientist, he wanted to take with him the literature he could get a hold of. He went to mosques and talked with akhuns, educated people of the time, visited medreseh, went to the market square and communicated with poets who performed there. It can be said that he began to live the life of the city and its people. He fell in love with Kashgar and it became a part of his fate. Looking ahead, it is worth noting that on his return, Valikhanov wrote a report on the state of Altishar, or 6 eastern cities of the Chinese province Nanlu. This work was highly appreciated not only by Orientalists in Russia, but also abroad, and soon was translated into English. Valikhanov also presented dozens of maps, 2 detailed diaries, and countless records, which still amaze scientists with meticulous scrupulousness and precision. He collected information about the topography, connection of cities and villages, the localization of the cities of East Turkestan, the history of their occurrence, in particular on the emergence of the city Uch-Turfan. He explored the ruins of medieval towns. He collected information about the administration of Kashgaria.
Вот в частности он писал,
In particular, he wrote that local self-government was not destroyed by the Tsins, but only adapted.
было просто адаптировано к цинскому правлению. Вот. Потом он первый из ученых выделил
He was the first scientist to single out the ethnographic group of Uyghurs and wrote the history of Uyghurs from antiquity to his time in the country.
до своего, можно сказать, времени пребывания в стране.
One of the most mysterious moments of the Kashgar operation was the attempt to penetrate Chokan into Yarkent. Whether this was an operational necessity or whether Valikhanov, a researcher, had gained the upper hand over Valikhanov's scout is unknown. Although some modern research works show that Chokan Valikhanov visited Yarkent, no justification for such an opening has been made public in recent years. But authoritative scientists have an abundance of records contrary to this conjecture.
Он писал о том, с какими опасностями было сопряжено путешествие. Вот
He wrote about the dangers of the journey. For example, in October, he wanted to go to Yarkent because he was mainly in Kashgar and its surroundings.
посетить Яркент, потому что в основном он был в Кашгаре и в окрестностях Кашгара. Вот, а не только отъехали.
However, as he drove away towards Yarkent, he was caught by a wristwatch who reported that a revolt had occurred in Kokand, that Khodayar Khan of Kokand was displaced, and Vali Khan fled from captivity again, and may again be in the territory of Kashgaria, and of course, they were ordered to return.
Вот, и им, конечно, им предписали вернуться. И он не
He could not go to Yarkent for this reason.
по этой причине.
Of course, such intelligence activity could not go unnoticed. The authorities of the city could not know for sure, but they probably guessed the young merchant Alembai was not as simple as he wanted to appear. Nevertheless, they did not try to disclose him. The thing here is not at all in Valikhanov's personality, but in fact that behind his back loomed the mighty silhouette of the Russian Empire, whose appearance in eastern Turkestan was only a matter of time.
Мне кажется, купцы друг друга знали.
I think the merchants knew each other, and the fact that he, Chokan, joined them was strange for some. There was a rumor around that the expedition has a Russian intelligence officer, or saying with another words, a spy.
Находится русский разведчик, или как тогда говорили, шпион. И его
They could easily expose him, but his friends Chokan Aksakals, wise, respected old men, saved him.
друзья, куканские аксакалы.
The act of local Aksakals was also purely practical. The Kashgar Ahuns were trade people and dreamed of stability even under the rule of Christian Russia. It seemed they even fawned on the alleged agent because Alembai Chokan was in a special condition in Kashgar. He even got the right from the local authorities to move around after 9 p.m. when the curfew began in the city. This does not mean that his stay in Kashgar did not become more dangerous day by day. Rumors about the return of Valikhan Tore were repeatedly seeping into the city, and the intelligence activity of Chokan caused more and more gossip.
Ну и, естественно, не могли
And of course, they could not help reacting to these rumors.
на эти слухи, поэтому поторопили
Therefore, they hurried to finish the business and get back.
в обратную дорогу. И уже 7 марта
On March 7, 1959, the caravan came back to Verny, but Valikhanov and several other people had to stay in the city until the 11th of March, until they received permission.
Они вынуждены были остаться до 11 марта в городе, пока не получили разрешение. В конце концов узнали, что
In the end, they did find out that there was a Russian officer in the caravan and sent a chase after it, which could not reach them on the territory of China, and on the territory of Russia, they did not dare to pursue them.
Китая, а на территории России они уже не решились их преследовать.
So the caravan safely reached Verny in April.
Дошел до Верного.
Chokan Valikhanov's mission was a great success, but undermined his health. Because of the hardships experienced during the journey, physical labors and shocks, from dangers, he fell ill and could not go to Petersburg with a report. His triumphant return happened only at the end of 1859, and in January 1860, the scientist was received by Emperor Alexander II.
Его приняли, можно сказать, с большим
He was accepted with a great delight.
ему цену русский.
Russian scientists certainly knew his price.
Вот, и его же наградили
He was awarded with the Order of St. Vladimir.
Владимира. Вот, его выселили
He was promoted to the rank of staff captain.
медстрам. Вот, но он стал
Became a member of the Russian Geographical Society.
общества, то есть это очень значительный
That was a very significant promotion for such a young scientist.
ученого. Его
He was perceived not only as a brave traveler, but also as a serious scholar-researcher.
серьезного ученого исследователя.
The scientist spent his next 2 years in St. Petersburg, then returned to his homeland and participated in the campaign of General Chernyaev. However, the massacre of the troops over the civilian population during the capture of the fortress Pishpek and Auli Ata in 1864 deeply outraged Valikhanov, and he resigned. Some researchers and biographers assume that during this period of his life he was preparing for the next assignment and studying a new legend, which he soon had to try on himself. The nature of correspondence with Kolpakovsky also hints to that. The situation of Khulja is extremely bad. The last clash with the insurgents was 8 days ago. I hasten to tell you some details about the last bouts of the Manchus with Dungans. But the Chinese are given help, and I hope that Your Excellence will send me to Khulja with the news. I can now say that the news of the 12,000 Kashgarians who have passed through the Muzart is a Kyrgyz trick.
И в последнее его письмо, то есть последнее...
And it is his last letter. Although it may be the last to be included in the collection, there may still be letters after it.
Но мелочь.
There he says, "Send me thus much rubles, but with small money. If you need to contact Khulja or Tarbagatai, I agree to go there with the Chinese ambassadors and deliver your letter."
А какая
There is no certainty.
уверенность?
Maybe he really went there. Maybe he died in an accidental shootout.
Погиб случайный перестрел.
According to the official data, Chokan Valikhanov died on April 10, 1865 in the village of Sultan Tizek. The cause of the sudden death was the exasperation of tuberculosis, or as it was called at that time, consumption. Ostensibly, shortly before his death, Valikhanov wrote to his father, "I'm tired, there is no strength. I'm completely dried out, there are only bones left, and soon I will not see the light. I'm no longer destined to see my dear family and friends. There is no means for this. This will be my last letter. Farewell, I embrace everyone." But frankly, the correspondence with both relatives and Kolpakovsky does not inspire researchers' trust.
Здесь очень много непонятного.
A lot of things here are hard to comprehend. First, 5 letters that have reached us, written by Chokan to Kolpakovsky, are not original.
Это письма
These are letters that were copied by the clerk on the orders of General Kolpakovsky.
по просьбе генерала Колпаковского. Порой они
Sometimes they were copied with errors, whole paragraphs were omitted.
пропускали целые абзацы. И
Question whether these are really his letters or whether they can be trusted.
допускать. Вот я подвергаю сомнению. Тем более
It seems to me that Qing authorities had no mercy. Here's another point of view.
прощать. Вот еще одна, это моя
He was actually exposed in Kashgaria.
оплачен в Кашгаре. Вероятно,
Probably Qing scout who came to the village where the scientist lived could get rid of Chokan.
в аул Чокана.
Or it could be done by Russian special services to eliminate an unnecessary witness.
Ненужного свидетеля.
Chokan Shingisuli Valikhanov left behind a huge layer of information, which, even now in the 21st century, is still not fully understood. At the same time, his short but bright and contradictory life gave birth to a whole series of secrets and mysteries, which perhaps will remain forever unresolved.